So we're back with another video again, guys. This time we're going to be taking a look at inflation, and of course it's at the CSEC level for economics. Now, inflation is a term that is simply referring to an increase, a sustained increase at that in a general price level. So we have the fact that prices are increasing, but the prices that are increasing, it is usually viewed in terms of a given basket of goods, and that is usually consumer goods, goods that consumers use all the time, like rice, flour, oil, those types of items. And you also have the retail price index being used to measure inflation. So the definition as to what it is referring to, we are looking at an increase, a general and sustained increase in the price level. Now, this isn't just one good rising. This is a few goods well that consumers use, the prices of those items continually rising over time. So, as inflation occurs and the prices of items keep rising and rising, what actually happens is that means that you have to pay more money for the same amount of items. So, let's say previously you were paying $5 for a pack of rice. Because of inflation, now you have to pay $10 for that same pack of rice. So that is just to give you a general example as to what it is referring to. You have to use your more of your money to be able to obtain a good item, and this is reducing the value of money. If you have to pay more to obtain an item, that means the value of money is actually falling, and this is something that could be negative for the economy. So we're looking at the causes of inflation because there are certain things that actually do contribute to inflation in an economy. So the first one is demand pull inflation. Since you're all econ students, you should be very familiar, or even if you're business students, you all should be very familiar with what demand is referring to. And if not, that is a definition that you definitely need to revisit. So demand pull inflation is looking at the fact that as more and more persons are desiring goods in the economy, if supply isn't able to meet the amount of goods being demanded, you actually have higher prices as a result. Cost push inflation is looking at your four factors of production. Any increase that you have to any one of these factors of production, you all should be able to recall your land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Any cost to any of these factors would actually encourage a business to pass on that cost to consumers in the form of higher prices. You also have imported inflation as well. So it's not uncommon to know that some businesses actually purchase goods or items from abroad to be able to resell to their local customers. If you have world prices rising in that of another country, you have to pay more to obtain the item. That means that you would sell it for more as well. Increase in the money supply. When you have too much money in the economy, that means that you have too much money chasing too few goods, and that is an additional cause of inflation. That further circles back to the point of demand, where you have too many persons requiring the item and supply is not being able to increase enough to be able to meet that high demand. One of the very first consequences that we have to inflation, because we know inflation, it's something that it's definitely on the negative side, right? An economy does not want to have too much inflation in place. So, looking at the consequences, we're starting off with the very first one, which is looking at fixed income earners. So, for fixed income earners, say you're looking at persons that are getting a set salary at the end of every month. So, these monthly paid individuals that get 6,000 or 7,000 every month, they are losing out because even though the prices of goods would have increased, their salary has not increased. So, therefore, with the same amount of money, they are able to purchase less goods, which is why one of the first consequences of inflation is the fact that fixed income earners are losing out or they're suffering a loss. Now, this is another major one. You have export prices rising in terms of if we have inflation in our domestic economy, and we know that we usually sell products or items to persons of a foreign country or foreigners, that means that our items, the price value of it would have increased. It's increasing for those foreign persons that wish to purchase it as well. So you have a rise in export prices, and they could continue to purchase it at a higher price, or they can choose to stop purchasing it at a higher price. So the next consequence we have is borrowers' gains. So due to the fact that during an inflationary period or the fact that inflation is occurring, you have the fact that there is a fall in the value of money, right? So that actually causes the amount that persons have to repay in real terms to fall. So that would encourage consumers to actually want to borrow more funds. So inflation encourages borrowing. On the flip side of that, you actually have the fact that creditors tend to lose out. So persons that loaned money, especially if you loaned money a few years ago, if you have inflation occurring right now and the value of the money has fallen, you are actually going to receive less money in terms of at least its purchasing power and what you're able to do with that fund. So imagine you loan someone 10,000 about 5 years ago. And when they actually do pay back the funds, the amount of items you were able to purchase with it, it would definitely be less. Two other general consequences being identified. You have looking for better prices. So you do have the fact that some persons would definitely go store to store. This is a bit time consuming, looking for bargain prices. Because we know that not all stores would sell items at the same value. So you walking around from store to store looking for better prices, that actually is a consequence of inflation. And if you have inflation, that could also mean that less labor is being employed by firms due to the fact that persons might not be demanding as much goods or items, so therefore the firm would not require as much workers. Looking at measures to reduce, now we do have a few measures to reduce inflation. One of the very first one is contractionary fiscal policy. So fiscal policy, as you all can recall, is government spending and taxation. So if the government increases taxes, that means that persons would generally have less money to spend. And you also have the fact that if the government reduces their spending in the economy, that would allow persons to have less money to spend also. Deflationary monetary policy is actually looking at the fact that interest rates could rise, utilizing a lot of strategies under deflationary monetary policy there to actually reduce the amount of funds that persons have access to contribute to inflation. So remember, we said earlier that if one of the factors of production increases, that leads to inflation as well. You have one of those factors being that of labor or wages. So there are times in which employees would demand higher wages. When you have wages increasing, that could further contribute or lead to more inflation. So limiting trade unions' power to actually increase the wage would be a good measure to help reduce inflation. Government subsidies and grants is also another great measure. A subsidy is when the government is bearing part of the cost of an operational business. A grant, that is something that a business is obtaining, a sum of money that they do not have to repay. All of that goes a long way in terms of reducing inflation. Okay, so all of these measures to reduce inflation is actually targeting one of the causes that we would have identified earlier on in the notes. So if imported inflation, because we identified that to be one of the causes, using local raw materials and final goods is a very good way to combat imported inflation. And for that increase in the money supply that we had earlier, a very good measure would be reducing the money supply. And of course, reducing the money supply would take numerous forms. We identified increasing interest rates just a while ago, so persons would be deterred from borrowing. You also have the fact that the central bank could sell more securities to persons. All of this helps to reduce their money supply or the general amount of money that they have. So, based on what the cause of inflation is, implementing any one of these factors would be extremely successful in terms of reducing inflation. And that sums up the information for this topic. Don't forget to interact with the video, keep liking the video, keep sharing the video if you need to, and ensure that you encourage others to take a look at it as well, so you can help other econ students to excel and be successful. Review the video as much times as you like, slow it down if you wish, but do check out some of our other videos also. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe.